Hey gang, it's Dr. Parikh. I just want to make a quick video to talk about what we're going to do for this week with the snow day. I looked and I saw that most of the assignments could be pushed back, but when I looked a little closer, I realized that there were a few things that I needed to talk about, and that there was one assignment that I needed to have you work on. Let me see, where do I want to stick this guy? I'll stick him right here for now. This is going to be very stream of thought. I'm sorry, I'll do my best to be a little focused. So for next week, so let's just look at the calendar together. Let's see, what's that? Snow day reading roles. Okay, that's the thing. So your reading roles, I do need to have something for me to work with, because we're not going to go through all of the content when we come together on the 26th. So what I'm going to do is have you turn in your reading roles on the 19th, and so you'll submit it like normal. And then we're also going to do a discussion, and you'll get your full points for submitting your reading role, and then the discussion you're going to get an extra 10 points for. So you'll basically get 10 bonus points for the snow day happening. Let me move these down here. Actually, so we're just going to move all of the activities, so things that we might have done in class normally, we're not going to do in class. So I'm going to move everything else that would have been due on Tuesday, today, the 12th, for our snow day. That's all getting moved onto next week. So next week it looks like there's just a crap ton due. So what you'll do, you'll upload for the discussion. You'll upload it by next Tuesday. I know the university's closed, but it's just kind of a nice day to pick. I recommend, it should be hopefully mostly done. You've already done the reading, hopefully, because the snow day got called, just yesterday. But at any rate, hopefully it's not too much of a burden. But you have some time between now and the weekend if you have out-of-town plans. And then you'll post whatever you upload for me in the discussion, and then you'll actually have until the following Tuesday to make some replies to your peers. So let's start there. Discussions. So I always just create a couple discussion threads for if you're trying to look for other people who want to help do things. But I also have this thread created or this forum, I guess, for the reading roles. So whatever you put together that you submit to me is what you're going to upload here. And then, so that's your initial post. If you had the reporter role, that's a little tricky to get it to work here, so I think it's easier if you just pick any other role you want to. And then after your first post, I want to see 5 total follow-up posts. And I give you a general guideline of 50 to 150 words. And I'm fine if you want to just look at your group members' posts. You probably know their names by now because we do lots of games with names. Or you could look at other people's, I'm fine. Now, it's not going to pop up for me to give you any credit until you have 6 posts total. So make sure that you get those 6 total posts in by the next time we meet on the 26th. So I have everyone turn in their first post by next Tuesday, so then you know that it's going to be up and you have a week to figure out when you're going to go in and make your responses. Now, so you're actually going to submit your work twice because you're going to upload it just like normal into the normal assignment, and then you're also going to create a thread with that information. So you'll get your 15 points on the normal assignment and 10 points over here. So you would just click here and you would create a thread, and I think you might not be allowed to see anyone else's work until you create a post. Maybe not. I don't remember how I set this one up. And you just, for the subject, write whatever role you're doing in there, and then you can paste whatever you would do. You can attach files, you can attach photos, you can attach files down here. It's up to you. So that's the discussion. That's the first one. That's the big one. Weekly assignments. I usually go over what assignments are coming up, and we normally do some things in class that we didn't do. So I want to go over those real quick. I'll talk briefly. This gratitude lists are bunk, and it was an ingratitude list, and I think there's some questionable language in this one, so forgive me for that, please. But what I like about it is that I think it highlights the experience. I use the phrase a lot, blaming the victim, and it's easy to fall into that with positive psychology. And so this kind of talks about someone who felt very almost attacked and blamed. She talks about the cult of positivity, and how it didn't work for her. And actually, I think that I think there's a lot to why it didn't work for her in this case. But I think it shows how when you just kind of dumb positive psychology down and assume that it works for everyone in every situation and is the only thing that you need, you can hurt a lot of people along the way. At the same time, I do believe that positive psychology has things to offer, so it's an interesting check. So the things we were going to do in class, Big 5 personality test. This is pretty straightforward. You go through, you answer the questions on a 1 to 5 scale. Let's see. And then down here, you copy your scores. The ones that are marked in gray get reversed, and then you can add them all up. I like to average them sometimes, so I'll add them all up and then divide them by 10 so that I can see like, oh, I got a 3.4, so most of the time I rated it just a little more than neutral. I just like that scaling, but you can do whatever. And then down here, it talks a little bit about each. And I think there's resources elsewhere this week that talk more about it. The happiness SMART goals. So we talk about SMART goals. And for this, I want you to create 3 SMART goals, so following the same system that we've talked about before, and think about things specifically related to happiness. How would you plan for happiness the same way you plan for anything else? And then you can, if you think that it's ridiculous and you can't, show me your best and then tell me why you think it wouldn't work. One thing I want to highlight, and I sent this in the email, is very few people are including their key terms as they're submitting assignments, these activities. And so I did a couple things. One thing I did was on each one I tacked a little reminder, because I used to just have like a general reminder when you kind of click into the folder, but I understand that it's really easy to lose track of that mentally. So I just this line, you can see it's exactly the same on each one. To do 5 key terms from the readings. It doesn't have to be the textbook. If you do use an article, just cite, tell me the author's name. And, if you want to do a full APA citation, that's great. If you just want to tell me the name and the page number, I will accept that for this. Your paper, I want APA style, but this, I don't want you to be spending an hour just figuring out your citation. So the other thing I've done is I looked and I realized this really does add time to these activities. And it kind of balances because I took away the tests and quizzes approach. But still, I thought that, I thought the points values didn't make as much sense as they did last time. So I went in and generally I added 5 points to each assignment. So these assignments are worth more than they were at the beginning of the semester. The first week or 2 I didn't, because those were a little inflated already, just to give people a little bit of a cushion to start with. So as a reminder, you need to average 40 points a week. So let's look through this one: 10, 20, 35, 45, 55, 60, 70, 85. If you did all of the assignments for this week, you would end up with 85 points. And so if you really like the topics this week, or you know that you have more time right now than you will later, For example, if you know you have an online class that starts in the second half of the semester, you could do all of these activities this week, and then some other week you can just completely skip and be fine. It'll even out. Now, this is a heavy week. There was, it's partly just my inspiration. So this week I was very inspired by the readings. There was a lot that made sense to have people do. Other weeks I just kind of would squeak by with the 40 points. So now it would be probably closer to 50 points or so, because I need to keep inflating the values of everything. If you see this little reminder, I've already adjusted the points. But for later, I only went a few weeks. So after that, I still need to put in this reminder, and I'll change the points as I go. But at any rate, you don't have to do all of them. And especially, I'm making them worth more points to balance out that you don't have as much time to do them now that it takes more time to write them up. All right, what else? Anything else? I don't know if I talked about this one last time, but the chapter talks about savoring. Yeah, so those are the two that say start in class. The Signature Strengths Journal, I used to accidentally have it labeled start in class. Maybe that was the other one that was in the calendar. But honestly, you could have done that one already. So that's week 4. Those are the assignments that last week I would have said, oh, we'll just do them in class and talk about them then. Let's look at next week, because again, we're going to kind of just, we'll discuss it very, very briefly, but mostly we're going to just move forward. You'll get to discuss it. I'll probably pop into the discussion and give some of my thoughts along the way, and that will be where we'll talk mostly about the chapter 4 or chapter 3 reading. Let's see. So leisure and flow is the topic for next week. So there's an article. This one, it's just one journal article. It's a lot of pages. It's 20 pages, but look at the size of these pages. These are really half pages. I wish that it was easier to print them as, 2 to a page, but if you were to see the actual bound journal, like the printed journal, it would be like a sheet of paper folded in half would be the size. So it's really like 10 pages. And at the end, it probably has some references and yada yada. So it's not quite as bad as it looks. But this one I think is interesting. It talks about flow experience in different types of athletes. And I'm actually really curious because I know we have several student athletes with us. And I think there's more who are past athletes. So I think it'll be an interesting perspective on it. All right, so the activity options for next week, and you can see these, I've added in the reminder, so these are updated point values. So the first one has to do with play. Find a new way to integrate at least 30 minutes of play into your day for at least 3 days. And it doesn't have to be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It can be any time between now and class time. And then and this is a guide to let you know about how long it should be. And I'm trying to give feedback, especially for these early activities, on people who are not going into quite as much depth as I want. If you haven't gotten that feedback, you're good to go. But you can always run things through a word counter to see so tell me roughly what you did and how it affected your well-being. And it's fine to tell me, I didn't notice anything. It didn't seem to help. It says find a new way to integrate at least 30 minutes of play. So for example, I have a kid. I play a lot. I probably played for about 2 hours today if you kind of cobble 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. So I also enjoy playing board games sometimes. None of those things would count. A lot of these activities, the purpose is to get you out of your shell, doing something new and different. So for this, something that might count, for example, we have a Y membership, but I keep meaning to take my son to the family Y to do some of the gym time or the swim time. So that would be something new and different. The other thing I could do is I could borrow a friend's kid who's a little older and would play in a different way, and do that kind of play. I could just sit by myself and kind of grab a few things and just set a timer for 30 minutes and sit and do, the focus is that it's something out of your typical daily schedule. And this one, it's 20 points, which is a little high for, I really try to boost the value when it's something that can't be done in one sitting, because you have to organize and plan a little more. The next one, encouraging flow, and you can check the book out to learn more about what flow is. It's this sense of being fully integrated and absorbed in what you're doing. It's, true flow we think of as this kind of peak experience. So it's not just that you lose track of time, it's also that you feel like perfectly challenged. It's not too hard, not too easy. And it's this enjoyable sense of getting lost in what you're doing. And so this is about trying to, choosing whatever it is you want and using ideas from the textbook to create an environment where flow might be more likely to happen. And it's okay if you don't get that sense of being completely absorbed in what you're doing. And absorbed is different. Like, when I describe flow and ask people if they've experienced it, sometimes what comes up is Netflix. Like, oh yeah, 2 hours passes while I'm sitting and watching Sabrina. And that is, that's lovely and it's interesting, but it's not really what we think of with flow. We think of as flow as being more active. Even experiencing flow a few times a month is considered to be doing really well. So don't be disappointed if you're not doing anything wrong if it doesn't happen. But I want you to think about times that it does happen and how you can make it more likely to keep happening. And so the next one is similar. So this first one, I want it to be sort of 3 days that you're doing things, and it's very open what that is. This next one is a little more low-key. It's saying just kind of think of a hobby that is linked to flow for you, and try to engage in that hobby for a period. So this is just a one sit-down thing. So you can see, again, the points are a bit different. So you can see, so for next week, let's see, there's 20, 45, 55. So this used to just barely total 40 points. Now it's 55 points. So you could cut out potentially one of the assignments and still make your full total for the week. And I don't, for me, it just rolls through the semester, so it's not like you have to make sure you get 40 points for each week. It's just by the end of the semester, there's a point that we run out of projects or out of activities. And so if you haven't gotten your points by then, you're just stuck. Let's look briefly at the schedule. And I want to talk, I'll spend the rest of the time, I believe, talking about the project and the paper. So the reference page was due today. It's now due 2 weeks from now. And that's really where I want you to make sure that your project, that you can find articles related to it. And it doesn't have to be super specific. Remember, my example is I want to play board games with people more, whether it's in person or online. And I'm even open to strangers. I hope to do it with family and friends, but I'm fine. I just want to play games live. And board games, like there's 1 or 2 articles that kick up, but not a lot. But if I think more broadly about play in general, then a lot more things come up. And if I think about especially the social aspect of play, I might be able to get even more. And so the literature review page, I want to see the references for your articles. And if you are not familiar with APA style, you can go to, for example, Purdue OWL APA, and you can find a quick guide to it. You can also go to bit.ly/writing in psych playlist. And that's where I have all my videos for my writing in psych class. So if listening to my voice here is just way too fun and you want more of it, or if you just need it, let me see. Maybe I don't have how to do a reference list. I thought that I would. I would poke around some of these early articles and I might, let me just kind of scroll through and see. No, maybe I don't. But you can find, there are a lot of resources on how to do a reference list.
You can see Word hates this. Let me do solution. You're doing a final.
So here, if you go to the sections of a literature review, it should talk for, I'll talk for a minute about what the references would be. But anyway, I want to see your reference page. Mostly I want to see your articles. So I'd also like you to include the PDFs of your articles, so the files that show me your article when you submit that. So if we come down here to, so it's kind of confusing. So if it's the project, it's here under project. If it's the paper part, it's here under APA style literature review. Because they used to be completely separate. I may combine those in the future. But you see here, you want to include and copies of at least 9 peer review. And it's much better for me if you include the actual PDFs. The links don't help as much as it seems like they would. It makes it much, much easier if I can just look at the PDFs right in Blackboard. So now for next week, I want to see your project plan. So I want you to upload that and bring a copy of it. It can be digital or paper. And we'll talk briefly. So I'll probably save some time to meet with you. Usually groups of 2 or 3 works pretty well because most people have similar questions. So it lets me spend a little more time with a group. So maybe I can spend 5 to 10 minutes with each group instead of 2 or 3 minutes with each person. And that can make a big difference. So for your project, the most common feedback I gave on the idea assignment was, that's an awesome idea. You need to make it more specific because it's really important that this project is manageable, that it's very narrow in focus and is really a first step. You're not going to get any part of your life completely transformed in one 5-week project. And if you're too ambitious, it's going to all fall apart and you're not going to know how to, if everything falls apart, you can write that up. Being successful is not required for the project because then you would just lie to me if it falls apart. But it's harder if things fall apart. It's much easier if you can write about how most of it went well and maybe some of it didn't and what you can do next time. So this project, there are specific weeks. If you look at the schedule, which is over here, if you scroll down, you can see the week after spring break is week 1 of our project. And for the 5 weeks after that, we're all going to be doing our projects together. I don't think anyone has had a project that would really require a different schedule so far. So I want you to make this small change spread out over time so that you can really, so you don't feel rushed, so that you can really find a way to fit it in with what you've got going on, and so that you can see how it affects you, not just for a week or 2, but over the course of a month. So I want you to talk about your plan using this SMART goal approach, and I want you to be really, I want you to tell me which days you're going to do it. So for example, my 2-day, for me, I'm going to schedule with the people I'm going to game with, and I'm going to get a commitment for days. And I understand people can flake out, things can go wrong with me, so those dates might change. If people cancel, I say, okay, because it's dependent on this other person, if they cancel, here's what I'm going to do instead. Most of you have goals that are just you, which means you have more control. What am I thinking? Yeah, so you want to be, part of being specific is showing me your specific schedule. For example, if you wanted to make dietary changes, I would want to see what those changes would be. So let's say you want to eat more fruits and vegetables. So you might say these are the 2 days that I'm choosing, and it might be because those are your worst days, and those are the ones where you don't get fruits and vegetables. Or on the other hand, it could be, these are my best days, and so I think these are the days I'm likely to be most successful at planning out to eat these fruits and vegetables. And so you might say, okay, here's a list of fruits and vegetables that I like and can afford and can access easily. And on each of these days, I will have at least 3 fruits or vegetables. You could also, if your plan is to start cooking breakfast, because maybe that's the meal that really screws you up, then you would tell me what your planned meal for each day is. Or to say like, okay, here's 5 breakfast meals that meet my needs, that are enough food for me, are, fit my calorie, fats, carbs, protein, whatever needs, and that I like, and that I can have time to fix in the morning. And you could say, I'll choose a different one. So you don't have to, super duper commit yourself. I will do, I will eat exactly these foods on this day. But I want to see that you have it, that it's easy for you to finalize plans in the moment. So I'm looking for a lot of detail, and you can see your idea was worth 10 points. Your plan, I know the font there is a little hard to read because it's yellow, but your plan is worth 30 points because it needs to be more detail. The idea, typically, most people, I just said like, okay, here it's approved, but your plan needs to be changed or needs to be more specific. The plan, I'm actually not going to approve it until I'm happy with how it reads. So if it's not detailed enough, or I think you're being too ambitious, you're biting off too much for this project. Now, I don't control your life. You could still say, well, I would like to do these other things too. But your project, the part that you're documenting for me, I want to be more specific and focused. So your plan, if I'm not happy, I'm going to give it a 0 and say resubmit it. And even if I give you a 0, you have the opportunity to earn up to full credit. Basically, once I'm happy, as long as you turned in your first one on time and work with me in a timely manner. So for example, when I give feedback, if you resubmit within 3 to 5 days, and as long as you're good to go before the first week, so before that week after spring break, you'll get full points at the end. So whenever I approve it, typically I give 30 points when we're done. That is all that I can think of. I know that's a lot. I've been talking for too long. If you have any questions, again, I will be looking around in this discussion forum. So I'll be poking around. I'll be kind of monitoring to see if you guys have questions. I might also poke in on some of the conversations because they're really fun. That's why I love this class. If you need anything else, you can also email me. And I hope you enjoyed your snow day, and have a good night. Bye-bye.